Hello, podcast listeners. This is your host with the most, JJ Gordon from JJ Meets World. Today's episode, we're going to take a deep dive into weight and the value that it gives and takes from a person. This is easily one of the most raw, open episodes we've ever done before. I think you're in for a real treat. So sit back, relax, or get on a treadmill or enjoy food. I don't care what you do. Just consume this podcast. And by the way, if you'd like to help support our podcast, visit jjmeetsworld.com where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some killer swag at our merch shop, or click the link to Apple Podcast and give us a 5-star review.
1, 2, 3, 4. JJ Gordon, sort of like that Indiana Jones, in that he's always sniffing out his next adventure. Yes, he is. He's always interviewing guests so he can have them on his show and they can talk about pop culture, arts, and leisure. JJ has his flag unfurled and he likes his french fries curled, and he's fun and then he twirled as he goes to meet the world. He will march into the rain even if his ankle sprained. Take a peek inside his brain. This podcast is called JJ Meets World.
So this episode is going to be pretty raw, and I'm not talking about ground beef.
Yeah.
Well, kind of, because that's kind of some of the shapes that you're going to see. So a couple weeks ago, I was thinking to myself about, I just caught a glimpse of myself after a shower, and I thought, you know what? I am probably the most comfortable in my skin I have been since I was 6 years old, 7 years old. When I was younger, I was a pretty athletic little kid. Like, I was not scrawny, but like I ran and I played baseball and stuff like that. And right about the time puberty kicked in, I started developing shapes. One of those shapes being my man boobs, which I inherited from my mom's side of the family. My grandfather also had a great set of
a lot of movies on that side.
Yeah.
Big old swinging movies.
And then like, for some reason, my rear end, my butt disappeared. It's concave, so I have trouble keeping my pants up. And because I couldn't keep my pants up, I'd have to cinch my belt. And so that actually formed my belly the way that it is now. And for a lot of years, I was for sure ashamed of my body and embarrassed of it. And I think that that's one of the reasons I developed humor was I'll beat someone to the punch about this thing, right? So I see myself and I think how good I feel right now. And I'm not in good shape. I'm in the best shape I've been in my 30s, which is nice. And I continue to lose weight and to feel healthier and build up muscle. And I definitely, though, am not in good shape. I'm lucky because I don't have high cholesterol. I don't have high blood pressure. I eat fairly healthy for the most part.
Right.
One of the things that has helped me is, so I do a lot of intermittent fasting because I host a radio show from 11 to 2, so I never get to eat lunch anyway. And I'm usually running out of the house in the morning, so I have one meal a day, and that usually is like an early dinner, and then I've got several hours before I go to bed. So I actually think that that's helped me with my weight. My weight was at its peak of my heaviness when I was on a morning show, because you get up in the middle of the night, you eat something, and then you need to eat something again, and then there's a regular lunch and a regular dinner, and I just found that I was eating all the time, and I was sitting all the time. So where I'm getting at with this episode is I want to talk about the hardships it is with a person's body. And I know that there are some of the quote-unquote most beautiful people in the world who, when they're interviewed, say the same thing that I'm about to say, which is it's tough being in this skin. And they talk about the constant need to maintain perfection, and the slight imperfections they see are under a microscope and are made 10 times larger than they are. And when you're a big, heavy guy, it's tough to find that moment. And so here's some of the examples from my life that have really influenced where I am today. So when I start to get chubby, I started wearing a shirt when I'd go swimming, which is the worst thing you can do because it's like shrink wraps right to you. It accentuates all of your rolls.
Right. There's like a psychological protection you think you're getting. You think you're sort of like you're adding a barrier so that it sort of gives you that feeling of, no, I'm covered. They can't see me.
And what's worse is you're sticking out like a sore thumb now because now rather than mixing in with all the fleshes,
Right.
you have a Ninja Turtles shirt on that looks really weird, and it's getting bleached by the chlorine in the pool. And so for a long time, I wore a shirt, even like to the point of where I remember going to Valley Fair with a girl that I was really digging on, and she was like, "Let's go on like some of like the water tube rides and stuff like that." And I'm like, "No problem. I'll just wear my swim trunks, and then I'll also wear this shirt."
Mm-hmm.
And I got up to the top, and they said, "Oh, you can't wear a shirt." And I thought, "Oh my God, I'm gonna have to take off my shirt in front of this girl." And I made an excuse that I didn't put sunscreen on underneath, and I didn't want to get sunburnt. And so I watched her go up to the top of this big long thing and take a ride on this tube down, and it looked like it was a ton of fun.
Yeah.
And I excluded myself from that. And even when she suggested, "Let's go back and get some sunscreen," I was like, "You know what? That's all right. I don't really want to smell like chlorine for the rest of the day."
Right.
I'm, excuse upon excuse upon excuse. And so it wasn't until previous podcast guest Natalie Deutsch and I were in Detroit Lakes for a 4th of July celebration, and we were swimming in the lake, and I was wearing a shirt, and she was like, "Just take the shirt off." And she called me out in a way I've never been called out before. She goes, "Nobody cares what you look like underneath there. Take it off. Be a part of what's going on with us. You can trust us to not look at you and go, ugh."
Mm-hmm.
And so I took my shirt off, and you know what? Nothing.
Right.
People didn't line up to take photographs.
Right.
No one yelled that there was a whale in the water or anything like that. And so since then, I have been confident in going into a pool just wearing, or a beach or whatever, wearing just swim trunks. So on that same level, I realized I haven't been photographed without my shirt on since I was 6 or 7 years old. And that is terrifying because my body is a road map. And like one of the things when you're a guy, and like I've had weight fluctuations that have gone from being like 220 pounds to 280 pounds, back down to 230 pounds, almost up to 300 pounds. My weight has fluctuated so much that I have stretch marks, and they're not horrible stretch marks, but they're noticeable if you linger on me for more than 2 seconds.
Right.
Which, by the way, why am I so worried that people are going to linger on me? There are much more attractive people. Your eye is attracted to things that you find attractive, right?
Right.
It's not going to go to things that you find unattractive. If you put 10 pizzas on a countertop and one of the pizzas has like a diaper on it, you're probably not going to look at the diaper pizza more than once to be like, "That's messed up. There's a diaper pizza." You're probably going to be like, "Oh, I'm going to look at this pizza that has all the delicious toppings that I appreciate on it."
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm ever in a group of people, like let's say I was in Hawaii a few years ago, and there's a group of us and we were at a waterfall, and there's like, "Let's take a group picture." I was the one who said, "I will take the
photo.
picture."
Yeah.
Like, give me the camera. I'll take the picture. "Oh, well, then you can't be in it." "Don't worry. I'm fine. I got the memory."
Right.
And I kind of wish I had been in the picture. And it's tough. It's tough because my self-value for a long time was wrapped up in how I looked. And now I don't value it as much. Now, here's some big changes. My wife is fine seeing me naked, and she's attracted to me naked. So I guess I don't have to worry about that so much. I'm not trying to attract a mate.
Right.
So that's a huge change from where I was a few years ago to where I am today. And I also realized, like, the older you get, the more you realize, like, gosh, it's such BS when people are doing things to, seem hot. Like,
Right.
it's such
fake.
crap.
It's fake. It's theater.
And you know what? If I saw someone who
Pageantry.
was in their early 20s who was trying to do that and like went out and bought, like this really awesome Justin Timberlake fedora and all this stuff, I'd say, like, listen, just wait a few years and this isn't going to matter anymore.
Yeah.
But I totally understand that to you right now, this really matters.
Also, return the fedora. That's not going to trick anybody.
It's not. Nobody's going to like it. Now, if you get a fedora because you like the character of Angel Batista from the Showtime series Dexter and you want to look like Angel, Aniel, More power
He
to
rocks
you.
it though. He rocks
He
it.
does. He really does. Also, I can't believe that the Miami Police Department would be fine with him wearing a straw fedora all the time. Like,
Something
aren't
tells
there
me
more
that
rules?
Dexter didn't really adhere to a lot of police procedures and protocols.
really?
Something tells me that I think they fudged some of that.
One of the most inspiring things I've seen recently is, did you see the new It? Did you see that movie?
I saw the first one, not part two.
Yep. So in part one, Ben, who's the chubby kid, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have a 10-minute long sequence where they're out at a swimming hole and he's only wearing his underpants, his little tighty whities, his little 1980s Hanes tighty whities. And I remember thinking, like, this kid is brave because he's going to be seen by millions of people in this state. And I realized that, you know what? The next generation that's coming up appreciates people for the uniqueness of their bodies. And I think that is something that I really hope sticks around, and I hope becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. And don't get me wrong, you should want to be healthy, right? So don't think that, like, I'm saying you can eat whatever you want and, you know, have a sedentary lifestyle. Like, you need to be healthy, but we're all not meant to be Cindy Crawford thin. We're not all meant to be Freddie Prinze Jr. thin.
Right. The only person who looks like Brad Pitt at 60 is Brad Pitt at 60. No one else is. And there's a lot of probably surgeries and other things that could potentially go into things like that. You know, it's all fake. I wonder, because we're talking about body dysmorphia, right? And which is something that I've suffered with too, and I still suffer with. I have since I was a kid. I remember the moment when it started. And I wonder how prevalent this was before mass visual media, before people were just constantly seeing images being marketed to them as being quote unquote ideal. Because, like the not having the 6-pack abs, having a pot belly and love handles and not being athletic like the other boys in class. Like, I remember in elementary school in the 3rd grade, when I realized that all the girls I had crushes on had no interest in me, but they were interested in the athletic boys, like the ones who were sort of skinny and could run fast and could do stuff like that and could show off in gym class. And I remember getting picked up from school one day and I had wore Twins shorts. I don't know
Minnesota
why.
Twins?
Minnesota Twins shorts. I don't know why.
Danny DeVito, Arnold Schwarzenegger twins.
I wish. I probably would have not gone down this body dysmorphia hole because I'm like, I got fucking Danny DeVito in my pants. I look awesome. No, I got into the car and I remember looking at my legs and thinking my legs were really fat and they looked gross. I was like, they look gross in shorts. I shouldn't wear shorts. And I did not wear shorts by my own volition until adulthood. Unless I was in gym class, you have to wear gym shorts or that was it. I never wore shorts. My parents would be like, are you sure you don't want to? Be like, no, I don't. I'm good. Because I thought my legs are really ugly and they shouldn't be seen. I don't want people to see them. And then I also, like the places that I gather fat on, you know, my love handles, my belly, and then my neck. And so I became really self-conscious about my neck and my jawline. I want to say 7th grade or so. And then when I could finally start growing facial hair, it was like, it can feel like the t-shirt at the pool, right? If you don't like how your face looks and you can grow facial hair, it feels like you're a little more covered up. You know, it still feels like that to me now.
Especially if you can get like a thicker beard and
Right.
it's not just one of the ones where like when like you really show off, you know, your double
Right.
chin or something
Right.
like that.
Because like a facial hair can help, you know, redefine quote unquote your jawline and all this other stuff. And then, you know, I don't know if this is technically body dysmorphia or not, but I have psoriasis, a really bad psoriasis. So I have to take medication for it every 2 weeks. And my skin is clear now and it's great. But for years before I could afford the medicine, my body as an adult was covered in scaly psoriasis. And luckily it wasn't on my hands and my face so I could hide it. So
you were wearing a hoodie in the middle of summer.
Yep. All the time. Long sleeves all the time. I covered everything up that I could. I hated so much my body and I wanted to be out of it. So like that is such a slow, inescapable torture to hate your body like that. Right. And
It's not like you blink and years have gone by.
right.
You are living it every minute of every day. It gets into your subconscious,
Yep.
so it affects your dreamscape.
Yeah.
I remember going clothes shopping and being mortified about going clothes shopping because, I'm a junior in high school and I'm wearing an extra large.
Right.
And the word extra
Right.
is horrible.
Right.
Horrible.
Yeah.
Compound onto that the fact that I'm 6'3" and I need to wear tall sizes.
Yeah.
So, for me because I wear my pants so low and I'm showing so much of my torso, I need to wear a tall size t-shirt. I actually won't buy clothes unless it's in tall size. And here's a word to the wise. Just because Eddie Bauer says it's tall and Gap says it's tall doesn't necessarily mean it's tall enough.
Mm-hmm.
There are no standards for how many more inches of fabric you're going to have
Right.
on this
It's
thing.
like I swear to God, all of the pants sold to men in town here are for men heights 5'8" to 6'2", because I'm 5'7". And so every pair of pants is just a little too long, So I have to go get it tailored. And I'm like, I just wish I could buy something off the rack.
Do you find that like there's too much room like in the crotch?
No, in
for you?
the bottom of the
Just in
legs.
the bottom?
Yeah,
Like,
just in the.
so-
that's where I'm noticing it.
So here's my problem. If I want to wear my pants where it's supposed to be worn, I have to bring them so far up that there's not enough space in the crotch
yeah.
to make it happen. So I've got to find specialty pants. And if you've ever had to have tailored pants, it adds up.
Yeah.
Like when you think I've got 4 pairs of jeans and I got 2 pairs of chinos, it adds up every single time you do that. My biggest issue is this, and this is also something that like I think is supposed to be empowering, but it sure as hell isn't. Once I got to the point of where I realized I can't shop in the regular section of a store, I need to seek out the big and tall section.
Yeah.
There are very few stores that actually have a big and tall section in their physical store. So I will give JCPenney some major props. They hide it back by the photo center, but it is there and you can go into the big and tall section. But you know what happens when you get into the big and tall section? If you saw an awesome pair of like shorts with lobsters on them in the regular section, there's no guarantee. And then most likely there isn't a version of that in the big and tall section.
Right.
Most of the t-shirts I have, in fact, 99.9% of the t-shirts I have all are just plain single color, maybe with a pocket, maybe
Yeah.
not, because they don't make a lot of graphic tees. Now things are getting better, but you've got to go to places like Destination XL, which is a big and tall store. And I will tell you this, I've been in that store 3 times. The first time I went in, I was in my mid-20s and somebody who weighed probably 110 pounds helped me. And I'm like, you are the wrong person I need in the sales opportunity, for the same reason why I don't want a vegetarian as my butcher.
Right.
Right. I want someone who can tell me like, this is the feel. This
like
is how
they're
it's gonna go.
crying over the steak as they're carving it for you.
Right. Yeah. Oh God. It's like, this is so salty. The second time I went in with my mom. Now my mom was an A1 shopper. She was amazing because my dad had the exact opposite body issue I did. My dad was a skinny guy. In fact, one time I remember like him, we were going into Billy's Corner Bar in Vergas, Minnesota. And some guy was like, he was wearing shorts, like kind of higher rise shorts.
Uh-huh.
And someone yelled, "Hey, JD, last time I saw legs like those, they had barbecue sauce on them," saying that he had little like chicken legs, right?
Right.
And not that my dad cared. I think if you get called out for being thin, it's a lot easier than being called out for being fat.
Right. For sure.
So I go in there with my mom, and she's a great shopper, and she helped me find some good stuff. The only problem was it was focusing on the insurance salesman chic, is what I would call it. So it was a lot of like quarter zip sweaters and, things that you would expect an insurance salesman to wear when he comes to your home. Now, the third time I went in there, they realized, like, listen, we need more, athletic wear. We need more possibilities for people, who say, like, gosh, I might want to wear this to the beach. I might want to wear this while I'm around the house or on a casual Friday. So now they've got graphic tees and fun stuff like that. The problem is I go in there and they say, "What size are you?" And I say, "Well, I'm an XLT or a double XL tee if it's an outerwear piece. So a hoodie, a sweater vest, anything that I'm wearing over the thing that actually touches my skin. They're like, ho, not here, not at Destination XL. You are a medium. And I'm like, no, I am not. Maybe in the confines of this strip mall store, you can call me a medium. But if someone asked me my t-shirt size for the company, Christmas party,
Yeah,
we're all wearing
you're not
shirts that
saying
say
medium.
like going to Branson, and I say medium, they're going to be like, okay, funny guy. Great.
Like a medium double XL.
Yeah. Right. Like you're between XL and double XL, like you're in the medium between there.
I also because I'm right at that body size right now where if something is labeled XL or L, it's sort of a crapshoot on which one is actually going to fit better.
Oh yeah.
Because also some materials are just going to shrink anyways.
Yep.
So sometimes you're like, if you're anytime I've been a body size where I'm like, I want to wear an L, so I'm going to get an XL because I'm probably going to shrink the hell out of this thing on accident. Or if you buy an L and it gets too small, then I gotta get rid of it now. It's these are things that could be more navigable if we weren't carrying around with us this like psychic weight of not liking ourselves, of actively disliking the way that we look. So I've got all these photos of me as an adult, like at Theater B right now. In the main lobby, we've got a headshot of each of our ensemble members, right? And I was the only person who didn't dress up nice for it. I just slapped on a hoodie and I went.
And a little bit of your chest hair in there
little
too.
bit, yeah.
I like that photo.
But I was just disheveled. I had nothing. Because I hated it. I hated myself. I don't care, right? And so I took the photo, and then I got a lot of crap in jest from my fellow ensemble members, thinking, oh, Tucker's just being lazy. And I just play it off like, oh, I just don't care. No, I hate myself. I hate the way I look. And so when I did that was, what does it matter what I'm wearing? I look like shit regardless. So it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just going to go. Do we have to have my photo up? Could we like put something funny over it or something? Because you don't need to see
Can
me
I
up there.
sketch a version of myself?
Right. And that's how I have always approached it, but just never came to grips with it until we were all locked down and I'm just sitting in my apartment for months on end without human contact going, well, I guess I'll talk to myself and figure out what all my hangups are all about. And that's been one of them, I never really had looked at the way I treated my body in junk food as a form of self-harm because I'm not, I never cut. I never did anything like that. I never saw myself as someone who engaged in self-harm, but I realized I was at the very least engaged in self-degradation intentionally, out of self-loathing and out of this feeling that there's nothing better I could be than this. So I'm just going to go with it. And that's a mind zap, man. And that's something that I've carried since childhood and you've carried since childhood. That is painful. And I don't know how to, it's easier for me to address it now as an adult because I can work through things and talk about things and have a better perspective on it. And I've adopted a lifestyle that makes me happier. So I'm in a shape that's happier, but I've also accepted the fact that I'm never going to look like a male model. I'm never going to look like Brad Pitt. So that's an ideal that I shouldn't be striving for because that's just going to frustrate me and fill me with anxiety. The ideal I should be striving for, which can sound Pollyanna and can sound far easier to say than do. I know this as well as everyone else is to find a version of myself that I'm really happy with and that's maintainable. And so right now I'm close to it. I'm getting there. And I don't have to do it with hard exercise or whatever. And it's not necessarily a number on the scale. It's a feeling I get when I look in the mirror in the morning.
You know what's amazing is, so my initial reaction is to tell you like, hey, you look really good right now.
Right.
But that doesn't help. I can tell you
Right.
look good, but really what I need to tell you is you project an aura of happiness right now. Like I can tell you're not slouching down and you are more comfortable in who you are. And so finding a way that we can give affirmation and give compliments to somebody without bringing it back to looks.
Right.
Because that's the thing, right? We're always constantly circling this drain of looks, looks, but it needs to be feel. How do you feel?
There is a slight silver lining flip side to folks like you and me at the very least, where we are in our stage in our life right now. I don't mean this to come off shallow. Just because someone's attractive doesn't mean they don't have a personality. But you and I were forced to develop other things about ourselves because we felt there's nothing we can develop physically. Skin deep, we're probably fucked. So let's try something else, right? We leaned into
personalities don't have double chins.
Exactly. And being funny and being smart and being fun to be around can actually get you a lot further with a lot of people, both romantically and just platonically, than being attractive. And there are I don't want to paint with too broad a brush here, because you can be ugly and have no personality, be beautiful and have an amazing personality, and vice versa. But I really I may not be super happy with my body, but I'm actually really happy with my personality. I'm really happy with the person I've become. And the way I feel about my body is now beginning to match more onto the way I feel about other parts of myself, which I also hated forever. So I had to start liking those things first, and actually, or at least being able to drop the self-loathing from time to time. Mm-hmm. And when I was able to kind of get to that internal point and forgive myself for all the things I think I've done wrong, and for all the people I think might hate me or not, which is just something you create in your own head, then it's been able to reflect, I think, a little bit more, because now I treat myself better, right? Like I actually this year went and bought clothing because I thought I would look good in it.
By the way, if anyone knows anyone from the Target brand Goodfellow, we would love them to sponsor this podcast, because
I'm wearing Goodfellow right now.
Yep. I will tell you, as a bigger guy, Goodfellow understands that they are clothing all men.
Oh yeah.
And right now I'm wearing three Goodfellow pieces. And
when you first told me about Goodfellow, I was like, oh, I've never heard of it. Then I went home and looked at my closet. Like, oh, I guess I have heard of it, because I own a lot of Goodfellow pieces.
I have never talked about a piece of clothing more in my life, or a brand of clothing more in my life than Goodfellow. And here's what I like. It's very cost effective. There are fun colors. They make it in all shapes and sizes, and it is fun. Yeah. So if anyone knows somebody from there, we'd love to maybe talk to you about a great sponsorship. And you could do it just in giving us cardigans.
I love that we live in an era where male pants technology has gotten to the point that it has.
Oh, it's so good.
Because the pants I'm wearing right now, I could wear in any setting, in casual settings and dress up settings. It would be as long as it was ironed, it would be acceptable. And it's super comfy, super stretchy, super breathable. And it's got a drawstring on the inside of it. So you don't need the belt to hold the pants up. When you've got a belly, having a belt is like fucking torture sometimes, especially if you've got some hair on that belly like I do. It gets pinched. I also updated my belt game though, like 2 years ago, and did a Grip 6 belt. You use those at all?
People love those.
I love those because those do avoid a lot of that pinch.
Let me tell you something. I'm going to show you this belt here. Their belt, but it's got elastic in it.
My goodness.
But it's a braided belt. You'd never think that, right? No. And so it's got this elastic. So when I do things like I bend over, like my belt can dig into me. And like at the end of the day, like it's like it cuts into me. These elastic belts, I've got like 6 of them, like in different colors and stuff like that. They are amazing. I love it. Also, let's talk about just like fabric in general. So like the pants I'm wearing right now have a little bit of like stretch to them.
Yep.
I remember having jeans as a kid that were so tough that I swear to God, if I saw like something scary and I just immediately popped right out of it, like straight up, the jeans would stay standing. That's how stiff these jeans were. For a while, the most expensive piece of casual clothing I've ever owned was I bought $180 pair of jeans from Germany.
Damn.
That were the most comfortable, amazing. They were really soft denim, but they were made with elastic kind of built into them. And so I could do things like if I wanted to stretch in them, I could stretch without. I have ripped more pants in the crotch than you can imagine. And I've only tried to fix them twice because it's not just like I rip it at the seams. It's like I tear the fabric apart like a bear is trying to get into a picnic basket. And so for me, it's a big deal.
We put pants through a lot of punishment. We really
I love punishing pants. The term dad bod is also something I think that we're coming around to, right? The idea that like
it's being celebrated.
Right. Even if you were a smoke show when you were in college, once you start getting that life where you're waking up in the middle of the night and you're working at your job and you're providing for your family.
Don't got time. Better get
Right.
McDonald's again today.
I love the fact that we are thinking the dad bod is awesome. Now, I'm going to tell you this. This is something different too. So my weight and self-worth has gone immediately into like how I date and how I am intimate with people.
Right.
For probably my first 4 or 5 partners that I had, it was completely in darkness. You know, I would make sure that the light was off. There wasn't anything else in the room emitting any kind of a glow. If I could, I would get underneath the set of covers. I just made sure that I was completely cut off from the visual aspect.
Yep.
So for a long time, I didn't even know what was going on.
Right.
I didn't even know who was really in the room with me.
Right.
You could have swapped people out Freaky Friday style and I would not have known.
Yeah.
But I will say this. So I dated 2 different women when I was in Chicago, and Chicago celebrates a body like mine. You see more people on billboards who look like they should be eating a meatball sub than modeling Calvin Klein, because Chicago's a town where like we're upper Midwest. It's really cold, so you got to have layers.
Yep.
We're big sports fans who drink beer, and we dip our sandwiches in grease before we serve them. It's called a dipped sandwich. Don't miss out on it. So the females there are not looking for, like you were saying, the kids who could climb and ring the bell in gym class.
Could do pull-ups. I couldn't do pull-ups.
Right.
I had no upper. I could not do the 9-minute run.
Me neither. Me neither. In fact, I remember cheating during the 9-minute run twice. And my gym teacher knew it and looked at me and was like, "Is that really how many you got?" And I was like, yeah.
He's like, "Good. I don't want your death in my hands."
So what was amazing to me is feeling like I was the one who was attractive in that situation.
Right.
I've talked to people I went to high school with who I had a major crush on, who told me, "Why didn't you ever ask me out?" And I thought, well, I didn't think you ever wanted to go out with me. And it's not that I didn't think they wanted to go out with me. I was like, I thought you might be embarrassed to be seen with me, the big fat fatty. Yeah. And it's amazing the missed opportunities and the fact that I didn't give people the credit that they saw something beyond my nice chubby cheeks.
Yeah. No, my body dysmorphia played a huge role in destroying some of my past relationships. When I dated the photographer, we dated for almost 5 years. And there were all sorts of issues in that situation, but I've realized that one of the primary things that I had was I wanted to disconnect from my body so much all the time that even just hugging someone would connect me back to it. And I wanted out. I didn't want to be there. And I was a nightmare in some ways because of that. And it took me a long time to really, I knew part of it was going on, but I didn't think anything could be done about it. I just thought, well, this is what I am. This is who I am. There's no escaping this. This is what I'm going to be forever. It's painful. It's painful, but I'm also happy to be at this point of it where it's not like it's gone or it's going to go away, but it's something that I can understand now. Right. And I can kind of categorize it and define it. And then, once you can kind of define it, you feel like you can kind of, at least I do, you can begin to attack it, deal with it in some way. So it's tough, but like if you can get yourself to a point where you're willingly giving yourself compliments that you mean, you'll find other people will start to do it too. And it's not because of necessarily how you look, but how you carry yourself, how you move about a room and how you interact with them. So I've had people notice not that I've lost weight, but that I'm different with them
you're
in a
carrying
good way.
yourself differently,
Right.
and you have a more positive outlook and approach because that thing is not sitting right at the front of your mind.
Right.
It's filing further and further back.
Yeah. It's not this big rucksack I'm carrying around on my back. It's a suitcase that's by my side at all times, and I can always pick it up, but I'm really good at putting the suitcase down.
Did you pack that suitcase yourself?
Yeah.
Okay. Just making sure.
I need to replace it.
I miss airports. Airports, another place, because you have to take off your belt and your shoes. And that's the thing, like, okay, so I'm going to take off my belt. And if I'm wearing baggy clothing or a baggy pair of pants, twice I've been walking through a metal detector and my pants have fallen down.
Right. But also if you have thick legs and they smash together, it makes it look like you've got a gun in your pants.
Yeah.
And then you'll get stopped. It's like, I just have fat legs, but okay.
I'm going to tell you something. So metal detectors need to be, like the ones you walk through it, like
Yeah.
the airplane, need to be, I've done research on this, need to be so close to each other to be able to actively scan the entire human body.
Okay.
So there is a standard size metal detectors have to be. I am broad shouldered enough and big tummied enough that when I walk through, sometimes my arms will grace the side of the machine.
Okay.
And then I've got to go and do it again because you can't touch the machine while you're going through. It throws off the calibration.
Gotcha.
So the new pod that you get in where you put your hands above your head, like, and then they whoop, whoop around you. I love those. There's so much space.
Yep.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
Why can't we just switch to those entirely for everything?
We probably will.
Or being, I'll be wanded anytime I want.
Right. Aren't those things, those are the things that create like an image of you though,
Yeah.
right? So they really see you.
Yeah. I mean, and I would love to see what it looks like because that was one of the privacy things is that you can essentially see, it's like seeing someone
Naked, basically.
naked, like with an x-ray, you know?
Yeah.
But I also think if you're turned on by what that image sends over, you've got bigger problems to deal with because
Right.
it should be sort of faceless and there's no color to it.
There's this line that's been popping up in my head from time to time over the past month from Game of Thrones, the first season, from Tyrion Lannister. And I think this can actually apply in a myriad of ways. And it's been part of the mental judo I've been doing,
Okay.
which is it's the conversation he's first having with Jon Snow. He's calling him a bastard. Snow's calling him a dwarf. And then Tyrion says something to the effect of like, never forget that you're a bastard. Wear it like a suit of armor and they can never use it to hurt you. And I thought that's really, really interesting. And there are times in my life that I do that already. Like when I go on stage, like I get anxiety about acting until I'm on stage. And then I literally get into this moment of, fuck you guys, you can't hurt me. Right. Like suddenly this like suit of armor comes around me and I'm non-penetrable. Of course, I've been severely embarrassed on stage in the past, like in 9th grade. So like I've had things that I've gone through. And in that moment, it was the first time I ever did it where I was like, I'm not scared of you. And I put the suit of armor on. So in situations of, high stress, when the stakes are high, I can do it. But when I'm by myself, I can't. And it's so silly. It's like you'd think that this would be the easiest place to do it. And it's not the world that I have to wear it like a suit of armor against. It's myself. It's my own judgment that I have to wear it like a suit of armor against. And so I kind of have to tell myself, fuck you, man. I'm not scared of you, And it's like the Tyrion Lannister approach to it. And it's not that character isn't hurt by the words of people, but he isn't hurt. He shows them that he's not hurt the way they want him to be.
Yeah.
Right. He's like, I'm still in control of this. You can do whatever you want, and he's doing in that show what you were doing about your weight, right? Like, I'm going to beat you to the punch. I'm going to be the first one. He's like, I'm the first one who's going to make a joke about my size.
Right. Oh, I got stung by a bee today.
Yeah.
I use that on stage all the time.
Right.
And it always gets a good laugh. But I also feel like it diffuses any situation. So like if I tell them that like, listen, I am acknowledging the fact that I am the biggest person up on this stage.
Right.
Do not worry, because anything that goes forward now, if I play a Lothario, that I'm allowing myself to do anything while I'm up here. When I was in high school, we did the play Oliver. And I remember a moment when my heart broke for another person. And there's a girl who was a couple of years younger than I was, who was a larger person, but probably the sweetest soul I've ever met in my life. So another person who said, listen, I'm not going to let my weight define me. I'm going to let my actions define me.
Right.
And there's a scene where they're transitioning all of these big set pieces, and she's walking down a flight of stairs just as like the orchestra is, stopping to play and the lights are coming up, and she's playing like a maid, and one of the steps she steps on breaks underneath her foot. So the music is gone. It is just a sound of crack.
Right.
And after she barely got through the scene. After she got off stage, she was sobbing. And I remember thinking to myself, like, listen, I know that right now it's hard to see outside the fog.
Right.
And it'll take a little bit. But who cares? Who cares? And as you go forward in life, you're going to realize that this blip isn't what, that shouldn't be the thing you take away from months of rehearsal in this play. It should be the fact that you nailed that solo and your voice was so perfect for the part that you played.
Right.
And you brought a realness in what you did. So there's been a lot of controversy lately. People have been dredging up the Chippendales sketch with Patrick Swayze and Chris Farley from Saturday Night Live. Now, let me explain to you my first experience with this sketch. I remember watching this live when it first aired and being over the moon about this. The fact that, like, you two are the last, someone's joining Chippendales, you two are the last ones. And obviously the joke here is like, well, of course it's going to be Patrick Swayze. It could never be Chris Farley. And they do the dance. Chris Farley gives so much of himself into that thing, like at no point does he ever like stop and he has to like eat, to like get going. It's like, no, this is a guy who's passionate about dance. And like, you can tell he really rehearsed on like what dance he's going to do. Right. And he and Patrick Swayze step off stage and then Patrick Swayze's like, you're definitely going to get it. You're definitely going to get it. Chris Farley's like, no, it's going to be you. It's going to be you. It's just an honor to be up here with you. And they have this back and forth. I love that sketch. And I think that sketch said more to people who had weight issues than anything else until the end of that sketch. If they would not have chosen to end the sketch with Kevin Nealon saying, we're going to go with Mark, which is Patrick Swayze's character. Dan, who's Chris Farley, you're just too fat. Your fat is what, like it's not what we want at Chippendales. We want like really sexy people. If I would have written that sketch, I would have had Chris Farley get the role and tell Patrick Swayze, like, you just don't seem to be that into it.
Yeah, that seems like a much better ending.
It's a much better ending. It completely surprises the audience because you don't think that that's going to be the ending. And you know what? It actually says something about who we are in society.
Right.
So if they remade the Chippendale sketch today, they have a duty to be true with it. And and it's weird because the truth is, no way would Chris Farley ever be a Chippendales dancer in a traditional world. Yeah. But the truth should come from the fact that you're saying like, nope, this guy cared more and wants this more.
Right. There was in Avengers Endgame. So the change with Thor is that he's deeply depressed. He's been traumatized. And he goes inside himself and starts just drinking beer and eating pizza all the time, and he gains a lot of weight. And the spread of emotional reactions came out from it, from loving it to hating it, people feeling like they were being insulted, people thinking like, no. I was on that spectrum. I was actually someone who felt like I was represented on screen by what I was seeing. I laughed really hard when you see that first shot of him and you see that he's gained a lot of weight. And immediately I did not feel like me or the audience. This was just my perspective. I think people's different perspectives on this are really valid and they should be heard, but I don't want to paint with too broad a brush here, but it did not feel to me like we were going, wow, that's so funny that he's fat. Look at that fat guy. Let's make fun of him. It at no point was that ever what was going on. The thing is wow, this guy has gone really far in this other direction and it's telling us something about his character. This is so unlike him. And I love the fact that he stays in that shape the entire movie. At the end when they're going to fight Thanos and he decides to grab both of his hammers and get into a super gear, the belly's still there. It doesn't like melt away. And him being fat isn't the joke. Him being a shadow of his former self and wallowing in self-pity, that was part of the humor, but it was also touching and meaningful. And like, I was like,
it showed his vulnerability.
Yeah. I was like, I'm looking at my hero and he looks like me right now. This is me. This is me drinking and eating pizza and playing video games and not wanting to go out. This is true depression we're looking at right now. And it's being treated with vulnerability and with good humor. And it's honest. They never shy away from it. They never shy away from what he's going through, and they actually honor it. And so I was someone who did not take offense to that. Now, but a lot of people who were sitting in the audience, the first thing they took was, oh, I get it. He's fat and that's funny. And while I don't think that's the correct interpretation of what's going on, what is also equally true is the reason they're reacting that way is because in their lifetime, they've dealt with that kind of abuse where their weight was the joke, was the butt of a joke.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's as valid for them to go, I didn't like this part of it because of where I'm coming from. But that was like another example of it, right? Where I thought Hemsworth did a really great job with that. I wasn't offended by it at all. I can see why someone else would feel hurt in that moment. But I thought it was handled really well, and I felt represented.
It wasn't done in a cheap way.
No.
And I've seen cheap fat jokes.
Right. I mean, really, it became a joke about him drinking and being lazy and disconnected and falling asleep and not wanting to participate, right?
Right. Of not having self-worth.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And even that moment when he talks with his mother in that movie.
I cried during that scene.
Yeah.
When he goes, I'm totally from the future. When she guesses, when she can tell, and she's like, I was raised by witches, boy. I see more than just with eyes. I love that scene for a number of other reasons. Not only that, but because it makes Rene Russo actually really important, because she was so underwritten in the first two Thor movies. You just never got anything really with her. And she's actually a really good actor. And the fact that they made Thor: The Dark World suddenly really relevant, but also made me want to go back and watch it and fleshed out this beautiful mother-son relationship between these two that we'd never really seen flourish like that on screen before. It actually made me contact my mom and be like, hey mom, we talk about some stuff, because it was so sweet, right? It was this really sweet moment.
I want to call out 3 movies that I feel like as a fat person, and look, even like in this podcast, I've used terms like chubby, and
Right.
at one point I wanted to call myself huggable.
We're trying to, we're trying to protect feelings at the same time.
Right. Yeah. But so 3 movies that as a fat person, I felt like, oh my God. Number 1, you should go back and listen to our commentary for The Nutty Professor. The Eddie Murphy one from 1997, I think, 96, 97. One of the things that amazes me is he does such a great job when he's in that fat suit, understanding what somebody who is heavy goes through. There's a moment that, quite frankly, I think this is what Eddie Murphy should have won his Oscar for, where he's gone to the comedy club and the comedian has made fun of him mercilessly, and he drops his date off, and it's he's held a newspaper over the two of them while they walk from the cab to her apartment, and he drops her off, and she says something nice about, like, don't listen to that comic, and you're such a brilliant man, and your mind is amazing. And he just, he's like looking at her over like the top of his glasses because he can't look her right in the eye. And he turns and he starts to walk down the steps, and he puts the paper over his head, and then he stops and he puts the paper down so that the rain hits him on the head, because he doesn't feel he's even worthy of staying dry in that moment. And he just wants to, it's almost like he wants that feeling to wash away, and he's hoping the rain is going to do it. That, my God, is a feeling I have felt before in my life. Number 2, the movie Angus from the mid-90s is about a fat kid who wants to go to this dance, and he thinks the whole world hates him because he's fat. And it's not that. It's that he's not willing to give the world a chance to, to be a part of him. And it's a great movie. Angus is such a good movie, and it holds up to this day as fresh as it was back then. Kathy Bates is in it. It's just a phenomenal movie. And number 3 is the movie Heavyweights. Heavyweights about a fat camp, and it is purchased by Ben Stiller, who wants to turn it into like a weight loss infomercial camp called Perkisizing, because his name is Tony Perkis. First of all, that movie is full of people who ended up going on to become huge name stars, like Paul Feig, who directed Bridesmaids, is the skinny camp counselor.
Really?
And what's funny is they make fun of him in it. They're like, hey, Tim, hey, String Bean. And because he's the one camp counselor who's not chunky. But that movie is amazing, because one of the things they talk about is the fact that, like, listen, you know what? Right now, like if someone gives you a gift and you're a fat person and they give you food as a gift, it's going to be something rich like chocolate
Yep.
or look at this aged salami and whatever. In this, there's a part where they said, well, we just need to be better about what we feed ourselves. And so part of their fat camp is they learn about food and they learn about like making fresh pasta.
Right.
And you can have things that taste amazing and are still convenient,
Yeah.
but you need to respect what you eat as much as you respect yourself.
Yeah.
And they take on the preppy camp, and Heavyweights is just such a great movie because the whole point of him going to this camp is it's a camp where you belong, where other people know exactly what you're going through.
Right.
And so it doesn't matter. We can all not wear our shirts. We don't have to worry about it. And I think that movie is not only is it one of the reasons I ended up marrying my wife, Jill, because she quoted it like on our third date. And I'm like, did you just do a deep dive quote from Heavyweights? And the quote was, "Come on, you devil log." And it's just this throwaway line Ben Stiller has while he's going on this jog, and he like picks up this piece of wood that he starts like doing like arm lifts with. But there are movies out there that depict fat people in a way that is horrific.
Yeah.
And clearly it's written by someone who doesn't know what's going on. And I'm not going to compare it to cultural appropriations because they're drastically different, but it is the feeling of somebody saying this is who you are,
Yeah. Making
but not
hay out of
knowing
your
what it
misery,
is.
basically.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And I think that there are so many other great representations of people who are different sizes. My wife and I just went to this store called Athleta or Athleta. I don't know how to pronounce. It's one or the other, but they've got a new brick and mortar store in our town now. It's been really famous online and in catalogs. And inside the store, it's full of things like athleisure type clothing. So
Okay.
yoga pants and stuff for jogging. And there is every single type of body depicted in like the advertisement pieces that they have hanging in there. And I am talking about people who are, even like when we say like plus size models,
Right.
like, extra plus size models are represented in this. And so if you walk in there, you're going to find someone who represents you, and you're going to see them in an advertisement for a clothing store. And I know it's to make you want to buy those pants because
Sure.
you're going to look as happy as that person is wearing these pants.
Right.
But it is nice to see yourself represented.
Mm.
It's just like when they write a character in theater, for example, they'll give a description of a character, and it's usually age, sometimes, a little bit of body type, but for the most type, it's open. So like Harold Hill is never described as 6'1", 125 pounds. And so I've seen people of all different shapes and sizes enter the theater realm and play parts in different ways.
Right.
And only occasionally does their size come into how they play a part.
We did a play at Theater B years ago called Fat Pig.
Oh, yes.
And I apologize, ma'am. I'm blanking on the actress's name that played the lead. But it was one of the most brave performances I've seen because it asks that actor to go on stage and bear a lot of your body. And she was phenomenal. And that we packed that show, like people were coming to see it because it was so raw and honest. And it dealt with a woman who is fat and a guy who isn't, who fell in love with her, and he is then hiding her from his like chauvinistic coworkers and his family and stuff. Like he's ashamed that he's in love with this person, and it's like how tragic for both of those characters, but especially for her to feel like there's this man who both loves you and is ashamed of you.
Mm-hmm.
I've felt that in my life before with partners, but it wasn't necessarily about my weight. It was about other things. But man, that is
Conditional love, which is
Yeah.
one of the worst things that you can feel.
right.
Because it makes you think I'm not worthy of this love.
And it gives power to the opinions of other people, right? Because like the male character, he loves her and wants to be with her and finds her attractive, says no issue himself with her body. What he has an issue with is the perception that other people have of her body and how he thinks their perceptions then reflect on him, right? So he's not used to getting negative attention about his body, but now when he's with someone who is, he selfishly sees it as a reflection on himself, and it's just... It was a powerful play. It was a beautiful play. It is a wonderful play if you ever get a chance to see it. But yeah, like that was a really raw, intense, and brave thing for the actor who came in to play the female lead character. She was phenomenal.
Yeah, I think that there are people out there who realize I'm completely worth it.
Yeah.
And if you're someone out there who's listening to this episode and you think this is total and complete bull, and I think that you guys are simplifying something that is much more complex,
right.
And you may have had this good experience, even like if you're males talking about this and it's completely different from a female perspective. I understand. Everyone goes through their own journey with this. It's just the same way I think about someone who's going through cancer treatment.
Right.
Well, what's good for person A is not good for person B. And
right.
I just want you to know that, gosh, you're so much more than what you look like on the outside.
Right. If anything, hopefully that, if someone wants to take something away from this conversation, it's hopefully that they can get to a point in their life where they feel like they can talk about this openly without shame, in a way that can help them deal not with changing their body, but with changing their emotional state and their feeling and their self-loathing.
Yeah. Because
that is so toxic to carry around with you.
I don't know if anyone saw the show Shrill with A.D. Bryant.
I haven't seen it, but I know what you're talking about.
But she does an amazing job where her weight doesn't define her in this show, and she has some sexy scenes. There's a great episode where she goes to this pool party with all full-figured women, and it is just amazing. It is, and she feels at home for the first time ever, and I love it. And I want to comment. The thumbnail that I've never micromanaged the thumbnail for one of these episodes before, right?
No, yeah, but it is. If every time you want to have one, you just tell me.
I just want to say this is the first time I've ever like pushed Tucker to do a thumbnail. I took a selfie where I'm only wearing a pair of shorts, and I would like that to be the thumbnail for this episode because it is me taking a photo without my shirt on. Mm-hmm. And this isn't the like, hey, everyone, let's give me some applause for doing this. It's me saying, you know what? I think I'm strong enough right now to do this.
Good for you, man.
And then if I regret it next week,
well, you know what?
I just got to work past it.
Here's one thing is I'm not strong enough to do that.
Yeah.
I'm not willing to do that myself. Like I'm not like...
And Tucker gave me the out, by the way, several times on this. Just I want to point that out.
You always have an out. And even if a week from now you're like, hey man, can we take that down? We'll take it. Like it's totally up to you. You are in control of your image.
But I guess that's what I feel good about this. Like when I took the picture and I didn't take like 40 of them.
Right.
And I didn't throw it through a Photoshop set of, like Skinify lens or something like that. I felt good about it afterwards. And I am actually excited for this to go out there because I think what it says is JJ Gordon is to a point now where he's not going to be defined by that. And you know what? There are probably people out there who are going to say rude stuff when I go to the beach and only wear my Speedos. But I just don't want to give them the power anymore. I'm just done. I'm done with letting other people tell me what my self-worth is based on what's outside of me. Now, that being said, it is hilarious to watch me get into a scamp trailer because I'm a big guy. And that whole thing just... I always tell people like, hey, man, if this scamp's a rockin', I'm trapped in here. Please help me get out. I'm never going to fit into a ball pit, but I'm fine with that because I'm an adult and I shouldn't be in ball pits anyway. And I love the fact that there are just so many people out there who I love and respect, who care about who I am and how I'm feeling versus what kind of clothes I'm wearing, what kind of shape I'm in, shapes. I always tell people like, we always say like, oh, what shape you're in. And like, no, people are shapes because like I've got actually rather skinny legs. Mm-hmm. So what was somebody like a lollipop, right? Like we were doing a podcast once and we were trying to figure out like
Something, yeah.
yeah, like and so it's like JJ's kind of like a lollipop or like
Candy apple.
yeah, candy.
with 2
That's what it
sticks.
was, candy apple.
Which is so
And
cruel
so-
of me to say. I'm so sorry, JJ.
No, see, but I'm fine with that because I do have skinny legs, right? Like that's an accurate description of who I am.
Yeah.
And maybe if I was like a senior in high school and I was like, oh my God, no one wants to go out with a candy apple. Nobody wants to hug a candy apple. No one wants to go to the grad party of a candy apple. Turns out a ton of people do.
Yeah.
Because you know what? I think I give skinny people all of these like like all of this control and all these moments, but it turns out they're not thinking about that at all. They're just like, hey, should we eat some pizza? Be like, yeah, I'd love some pizza. That sounds great. So as we wrap this thing up, I hope that you feel comfortable in your own skin. And if you don't, I'm not going to tell you how to start that journey, how to continue it, but just know that if you can get to the point of where I'm at and where it sounds like Tucker's at, God, it feels good.
Yeah. It's like but it's work, right? And it isn't like, oh, I've arrived and now here I am.
Right.
Right. Just like with depression and weight and everything, there's the state you are in right now, and forgive yourself, whatever state you may be in the future. Don't, just live your life and try to take it a moment at a time. And, yeah.
Have you ever tried one of those workout machines where it's just a vibrating belt that you put around? Like,
I think even as a kid, I was like, I know that's bullshit. There's nothing
Yeah.
about that.
There's so many things from like the 50s. Like if podcasting existed in the 50s and we were here and be like, well, my friend, it's time for me to take some methamphetamines to get my, and they don't even call it weight loss. They call it reducing.
Yeah. I remember when we got those, remember those like ab cruncher things? It was it was on, for a while, it was like the workout thing to buy at home. It's basically
It
something
looks like a cot.
supposed to help you make sit-ups more efficiently or whatever. So we had one at my dad's house. And so I'd use that thing all the time. And didn't get a single ab, but went through a lot of pain.
I know I said I'm wrapping this up, but like your dad is someone who really inspires me because he got to the point of where I think depression was taking over his life a little bit, and he decided to make a change physically.
Mm-hmm.
And then he puts himself into the best shape he's been in since he was in college. And I'm constantly just impressed at that because it just goes to show it doesn't matter what stage of life you're in. You can make changes.
For sure.
You can do stuff that makes you feel better about who you are.
For sure. I'm 36 and I look way better than I did when I was 26.
Nice. Good work. I'm 37 and I look as good as I did when I was
Jeez, you're
7.
old man. Ugh.
I know. That's another thing too. We got to have a whole podcast about like what we consider to be old because I like right now I'm thinking like, hey, I could hang out. I could date a 22-year-old and things would be fine. Would they?
No, they
Would
wouldn't.
they?
Since I'm on the dating scene again, it's like, yeah, there's definitely like someone who, sure, legally an adult, there would be no issue with us like getting together. But at the same time, I remember what I was in my early 20s and I was like, I don't got time for that shit anymore.
Ain't nobody got time for that, right?
No, let them go do shots or whatever at a bar. That's fine. Have fun. I'm looking for a person who's got a personality at this point.
I just want someone who's got a 401k. All right. Hey, thank you so much for letting me do this episode.
Thank
Tucker.
you.
This
Thank
was
you
a lot of
for
fun.
being vulnerable and actually brave about this.
And by the way, if you ever want to reach out to us, so we're going to give you a list of places in just a couple minutes, but you can also find us on social media. Feel free to reach out. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear a little bit about your story. It doesn't have to even be for stuff that we're going to include on the podcast, but if you just feel like you want to tell us who you are and what you do, I'd love to hear that. That's going to wrap it up for today's show. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to help us continue to produce new episodes each week, visit jjmeetsworld.com, where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some swag at the merch shop, or follow our link to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. You can also follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all the sites the cool kids are using these days. JJ Meets World is produced every week by Tucker Lucas. You can find out more about Tucker's work by visiting moonbasemaria.com. If you want to get in touch with your host with the most, check out linebenders.com, where you can find direct contact info for JJ or booking information. I think one of the greatest comedians ever to tackle weight is Patton Oswalt, because he talks about how as people get fatter if you're not fat. They assume your B's start sounding bleh, 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 bleh. But that doesn't happen.